Hello everybody, this is Brad Dyke reaching out to you. Sorry for the long delay on another video, but I had to save up my pennies to get one of these big bad boys. So what you're looking at here is a R720XD staged and configured motherboard. And this is a Dell manufacturer, not an OEM, such as with the Google models. And what I'm going to do with this guy is I am going to take this motherboard. I'm going to have to do some touch up. If you notice, there's some little bit of plastic that's drifted into the CPU bays, but it's not bad. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this guy out, and I'm going to get him set up to replace the Google engine version motherboard in this chassis, so that I can get all of the advanced functionalities that unfortunately the program BIOS can give you some grief on. I'm just tired of it. I love it. You know, I've got one over here. Runs like a bat out of hell. It's really powerful, very capable, and as you can see, I've already caused a dual path failure on my lower NAS array, but that's okay. It was only for temporary use anyways. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove this 720XD chassis, pull it out, and I'm going to go ahead and put it over here, depopulate it, use this motherboard, take the old one out, put the new one in its place, get it set in place. But before I can do anything whatsoever with this environment, I'm going to have to do a recovery drive. Yep, the dreaded 2.5 hour stupid recovery drive that just is so poorly made. So to get this going, and to give you guys kind of a heads up of what we're dealing with and how we're working with stuff, this will be a multi-phase video, but I'm going to make it into a single video using my Flodora video programming merge program, and we'll take it from there. Now, of course, as a recommendation, remember that whenever you're dealing with replacing motherboards and so on, you need to have a grounded chassis environment. You need to be working with your 5mm gloves when you start to interact with the components of the platform you're working with. And of course, you have to have your cleaners, which are right over there. And of course, new compounds, silicon dioxide compounds, to put on your CPUs to make sure that they're transferring heat effectively. So with that being said, I am going to pause at this moment and begin the process. Okay, so this is the Google OEM based motherboard that I have on board already. And as you can see, it's a great chassis, excellent design, really well thought out, can handle all types of interfaces such as video card, IOF cards, flash cards, set cards, you name it, it can do it. Quite an impressive array solution. And not to mention the very large scale ability to be able to go across so many different memory chips and accomplish what you want to do. Great platform, excellent. And wait, issue. And the reason why I have this new motherboard is that Google did a lot of damage, in my opinion, to how the BIOS was operational and functional. Their intent was to make this device a throwaway device, which was, in my opinion, the worst thing you could have ever done. And in dealing with that, you've got your chipset platforms, dealing with your BIOS level. You've got also some of the hindrances that came along with getting a Google platform, i.e. the yellow casing you're seeing here. Even though it looks like Google on the outside, it's actually a Dell R720XD platform. And so I'll be transporting all of these components off, putting them on the new motherboard, and to prepare them in stages to bring it to a much cleaner version of the R720XD. Now, if you can get your hands on one of these fairly cheap, do it. It's worth it. It's just a flat out, excellent platform to work with. And then you can, swap out the motherboard maybe later, to bring your level of requirements into better check. But as you can see here, it's just a really great modular design implementation, and it has a lot of function to it and ability. Alright, well, what I'm going to do now is I'll step away and I will basically deconstruct the platform after I get my gloves on and allow me to prep the system like I need it to be and going forward. I'll see you in a bit. Okay, so now what you're seeing here is I'm starting the process of depopulating the motherboard and getting everything basically prepped for disconnection so I can reconnect with the new motherboard that I'm going to insert. Now, one of the key things you want to make sure that you do when you do this process is, of course, wear your gloves. Don't touch the logic board without gloves, and at least make sure at a minimum you're grounded and that you're not generating any static electricity before you go in and begin to work with this material. Now, the other thing it's important to realize is that as you're working with it, when you're transitioning your RAM to the motherboard, make sure that, number one, you're putting them in the sequence at which you had them in, because you may have different classes of RAM and they were working fine on your old motherboard, so just reposition them exactly on the new motherboard, because there are sequences that you have to put new RAM into to give it the proper functional role that you want it to do. So as you can see here, I've got my air directors, which are basically RAM plastic directors designed to put the heat and keep it contained and blown over at a certain capacity to keep the RAM at a decent temperature. Or you can have issues with your RAM, which you don't want to have. So as always recommended, take the time and put those in to make sure that you're protecting and sequencing your RAM correctly. The next thing, of course, is to transition one processor at a time to your motherboard. That's a tricky process. Take some time and look at my videos or other videos about, taking a processor off, cleaning it, prepping it, putting the new contact on it, the heating style. Geez, I can't talk to heat paste, which is basically silicon dioxide, and it's a heat transfer capacity for the system. So as you can see here, I've already started securing my card components off, putting anything that's electronic on static shield. Anything that's not, I can put off to the side. And as you can see, the system is progressing pretty well. I'll have to transport my RAID configuration, my separator interface cabling, and so on to make sure that I'm getting them all reconnected up correctly. Never hurts to take a photograph of everything before you disconnect it. So with that, you'll see this change in a few minutes. Be right back. Okay, so as you can see here, I've got one CPU mounted and the heatsink on bay. Now, one thing you want to make sure when you're doing this is to clean the CPU and the heatsink completely of its old compound, as you can see here, and as you can see down here. And unless you just recently put it on, like I did, I only put it on like a month or two ago. And so with that, you can add a little extra and then let it remix as long as it's the same compound. But you want to make sure that you're doing this in steps. Obviously, make sure you've got your gloves on, because you don't want to have that issue. And also you want to make sure that your point contacts are good, as you can see here. Okay, so what we'll do next, because I wanted to just point that detail out to you to make sure that you don't make that mistake going forward. With that, we're going to go ahead to the next step here and go ahead and prep the formatting of how we want to make sure we've got the principal components exchanged first. Now, notice I didn't take the RAID controller or any of the other sub-peripherals off, because really this is your focus. You want to make sure that there are no bent pins. I think I see one I have to correct now, but basically no damage anywhere whatsoever. This way, that's our goal. I will we'll get to the next step. Stand by. Okay, so we have encountered an issue. And the issue is the fact that when I got this motherboard, the shipper did not put what we call CPU shields in place in regards to protect the socket. So I discovered very quickly that one of my pins was off. And then that caused me to very quickly begin the process of utilizing what is known as a very precision-based tool, what you see here. If you look at there, you can see the fine tip on it, along with an extremely high focus micro lens style focal point that allows me to get in there and see individual pins and their proper alignments. So I'm going to go ahead and put the processor on this one because I have redirected the pin, which was located right about here, and allow it to see if it bring the processor up cleanly and do what it's supposed to do. But of course, there's a worry and concern that that contact point may not be very secure. So that's okay, but it does happen, and not necessarily does a motherboard go dead because the pins got touched a little bit. You can get in there to a degree and kind of self-correct these things. So I just wanted to pause there for a minute and go over that with you as I'm going forward. Okay, so the new motherboard is in, but it's not in because I still have a lot of peripheral cabling and so on. The reason why I stopped is because of this guy. This guy's kind of a pain in the butt. He belongs in this little sleeve down here, and he is basically a cable manager from hell, in my opinion. You have to release this lock by using the thumb clasp here while it's still plugged into its housing here at this point. Once you pop that out, then you get really easy access to the hard spots that require cable hookup connections and so on. But once it goes in, you can slide the motherboard into place and then snap it right into the lock assembly, which is right here. This is a finger hold, and of course you've got a couple other places you can grab, but you really don't want to grab anything else to run the risk of damaging circuitry. So this is the motherboard in, and it wasn't really hard. It took about 2 minutes to put it in its proper home. And of course, here is your pain in the butt and the CMOS chip with it that exists. It is a rather headache of a configuration when you have a Google motherboard, when you're dealing with the onboard BIOS setup. So I just decided I'm going to skip it this time, replace the motherboard, and go forward with a full-blown, genuine Dell platform. But stand by for a minute and we'll get this bad boy hooked up. Okay, so here is the old motherboard. This motherboard was the Google Flash version. And if you notice, I put protective covers over the Xeon sockets because I didn't get mine with protected covers and I had to do some minor pin straightening. And we're still waiting for the new system, which is posting now, to come up and boot to the operating system and to give me what I need. And that is the level of processing workload which I need to have working. So as you can see now, I'm not getting anything referencing to Google anymore, unlike what I used to get. And I'm seeing my two processors. I'm seeing my output 64 gigs of RAM, so I'm compliant. My RAID card is the one I transitioned, remembered its configuration because it had a battery backup, and it begins the process of the post mode. So the next and final step is to get this unit to load its operating system, which we will see what that will generate. At that point in stage, the other thing I want to make comment about this unit here is that the only pieces of plastic that you have attached to your array is this guy right here and this guy. And they're important because when you insert the motherboard, you want to insert the motherboard to the left in and then into its place. If not, you're going to have problems with this guy. So at that point in level, we're making sure that we understand what we've got and how we install it, and do we save it? Yeah, I would say it's worthwhile to save. You never know when you need a backup motherboard, though you'd probably like to get that BIOS cleaned up a little bit before you do that, and not so easily done when obviously you don't have it in a chassis ready to power up. But outside of that, we are going to go through the process of looking at the boot process. We're seeing that we have DDR3 determination values being identified. It identifies that there was memory in the motherboard and is not anymore. It does identify the BMC series 10 gig connection cards, which by the way I got for $30, so that's a pretty good deal. And it's loading up firmware integration wise to make sure the system is good. So this is the last key prerequisite, that you're seeing the total number of your memory, you're seeing the peripheral devices that have been added, and you're seeing the functionality that the Dell OS is happy with what it sees. With that being said, the next goal that will happen is of course booting into Windows 2019, which is what I am using for this particular system, and there's my logo. So with that being said, I am pleased, and that ends our discussion here, and let's hope that everything goes great. I also will be investigating flashing the motherboard just to get to the latest and greatest BIOSes and all that good stuff. But for this, I bid everybody adieu, and you have a good evening. Bye-bye.